Some houses don't just hold secrets, they are secrets waiting for the right key. The old Thornhold estate loomed, a silhouette against the bruised twilight, its stone walls scarred by centuries, its gables sharp as a predator's teeth against the darkening sky. This was it, the final destination on a journey that had started weeks ago, a desperate scramble for a new beginning. My life, until recently, had been a series of cramped city apartments and predictable routines, but a sudden, unexpected inheritance from a distant, unknown relative had pulled me across the continent, promising not just a roof over my head, but a connection to a past I never knew existed. When the listing for Thornhold appeared affordable, secluded, and undeniably ancient, it felt less like a choice and more like a summons. The real estate agent, a nervous man who clearly preferred the bustling city, had spoken in hushed tones about its unique character and considerable history, conveniently glossing over the pervasive chill that seemed to cling to the very air around the property, even on the warmest days. But I was tired of modern conformity. I wanted something raw, something untamed. This wasn't just a house. It was a forgotten world, a story etched in timber and stone, waiting for someone to turn its brittle pages. "Guess this is it," I mumbled, the words feeling small against the vast silence that swallowed them. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth, a raw, untamed freshness that felt alien yet strangely comforting, like a forgotten memory stirring awake. I retrieved the heavy iron key from the lockbox attached to the ancient porch post. It felt cold and substantial in my hand, as if it held secrets of its own, a silent, weighty promise. The front door groaned, a long, drawn-out sigh as though waking from a very deep, very long slumber. Its massive, rusted hinges protested, shrieking a mournful welcome. Inside, the air smelled musty, a dense aroma of aged wood and forgotten dust, the scent of time itself. It was to be expected, I reasoned, from a house that had been standing for more than 3 centuries. The initial walk through a hurried blur of dark corners and echoing spaces, I now took a moment to reacquaint myself with the layout, my boots creaking against the hardwood floors with every step, a constant, low murmur of the house breathing around me. The wallpaper, though faded and peeling in places, still hinted at intricate patterns of bygone eras, silent testaments to lives lived within these walls. A little wear and tear, I told myself, trying to dismiss the faint shiver that traced its way down my spine, adds to the character. Downstairs, the living room and kitchen, with their tall, narrow windows, overlooked the dense, murmuring forest. Upstairs, the bedrooms, each with its own peculiar draught and a sense of watchful quiet, seemed to hold their breath as I passed. And then there was the attic, an expansive, shadowy space at the very top. I hadn't paid much attention to it during the initial house tour. It had felt like a forbidden zone even then, a place where time itself had paused, holding its breath back in the living room. I glanced at the towering stack of boxes the movers had left. My life condensed into corrugated cardboard, clothes, books, kitchen supplies, an assortment of other items I'd collected over the years, each one a fragment of my past. I should start unpacking, make this place feel like my own. But the attic kept nudging at my thoughts, a persistent whisper I couldn't ignore. It felt like the house itself was pulling me towards it, demanding attention, demanding a reckoning. Better see what's up there, I decided, grabbing a heavy-duty flashlight from one of the boxes marked Essentials. Its beam cut a stark path through the dimness of the house, a fragile spear of light against the encroaching gloom. I headed up the narrow, winding staircase leading to the attic. The wooden steps groaned and protested with each footfall, a symphony of age and forgotten stories. When I reached the top, the air grew colder, thicker, almost clinging to my skin. I clicked on the flashlight, and dust particles danced in the beam like tiny swirling galaxies. The attic was vast, a veritable graveyard of forgotten things. Old, draped furniture stood like silent sentinels, shadowy shapes hinting at their former glory. Cracked suitcases were piled haphazardly, their contents likely undisturbed for decades. Random knickknacks and curiosities littered every surface, a jumble of forgotten lives. It was a storage space that time forgot, filled with items the previous owners probably meant to sort through but never did. A sigh escaped my lips. This looks like it will be a bigger cleaning project than I'd anticipated. That's when I noticed it, tucked away in a shadowy corner, almost swallowed by the dust and neglect. A dusty wooden chest, slightly hidden behind a massive, claw-footed armoire. Its presence was almost a whisper, drawing me closer, pulling me in with an unseen thread. It didn't look like anything else up here, lacking the haphazardness of mere storage. "Wonder what's in here," I murmured, my voice sounding unnaturally loud in the silence. As I pulled the chest closer, its edges were frayed with age, the wood darkened and softened by time. I lifted the heavy, creaking lid. Inside, there was an assortment of items that seemed to have been collected over many, many years. Old, tarnished silver coins were piled in one corner, their faces worn but still discernible, hinting at forgotten currencies. A tarnished silver locket lay beside them, its clasp rusted shut, a silent promise of secrets locked within. On the other side of the chest there were yellowed letters, each one folded neatly and tied with a brittle brown string, their scripts faded to near illegibility. But what really grabbed my attention was at the very bottom of the chest, almost hidden beneath the other relics. A stack of leather-bound journals. Their covers were tarnished with age, showing the marks of countless hands and countless years, but otherwise they were in remarkably good condition. I picked one up, feeling its surprising weight in my hands. The leather cover was textured and well-preserved despite the centuries. Opening it cautiously so as not to damage the binding, I found an inscription on the first page, written in elegant, flowing script. "Journal of Calb Thorne, Warden of the Vale." My eyebrows shot up. A Warden of the Vale, that was a name I'd never encountered in any historical text, certainly not in the polite histories of the region. At this point, curiosity was driving me, a relentless current pulling me deeper into the enigma of this house, into the threads of a story that felt disturbingly personal. I needed to know what lay within these pages. I carried the journals downstairs to my living room, the weight of them feeling significant, almost prophetic, in my arms. I sat down on my plush gray couch, placing the journals on the antique coffee table. For a moment, I adjusted the cushions behind me, trying to ground myself in the present, but the past already felt too close, too demanding. Finally settled, I pulled the first journal onto my lap and opened it to the very first page. The paper was thick and slightly discolored with age, but the ink, though faded, was still legible. March 5, 1670. My name is Calb Thorne, born and raised in the quiet village of Oak Haven, a place nestled deep in the New England woods where traditions hold fast and fears run deep. I come from a line of farmers, a simple life bound to the earth and the seasons, and for generations it was enough for us. That was until 2 winters ago when our village was struck by a blight that would set me on an entirely different path. That winter, our crops failed with unnerving speed. The stalks withered and blackened as if touched by frost in midsummer, their fruit rotting on the vine. Livestock died inexplicably, their bodies twisted and bloated, their eyes staring blankly at the sky. A creeping illness swept through the village, affecting the young and old alike, withering them from the inside out, leaving them gasping for breath, their skin pale, their strength draining away. People started whispering, their voices hushed and laced with dread, saying it was unnatural, that something or someone was behind it, a shadow cast by dark intent. The air itself seemed to thicken with suspicion, every creaking floorboard, every rustle of leaves, a potential harbinger of ill. Will I remember the chilling evening when they found Mistress Adeline, the village healer, hanging from the ancient oak by the river. Lifeless. Her death was a symbol, a grim declaration that the village had given into its deepest, most ancient fears, dark magic, the manipulation of the unseen. Mistress Adeline was a kind woman, gentle and wise, who had helped deliver half the children in the village, myself included. She had taught me about medicinal plants when I was a boy, skills that were merely interesting then but have become essential now, a lifeline in this treacherous world. To think she was accused of dabbling in the arcane and met such a terrible end was both horrifying and a profound awakening. It was a jolt to my very core, a brutal shock that told me ignorance, when combined with fear, could result in unspeakable acts, a brutal, indiscriminate tide of cruelty. I couldn't just stand by and watch as Oak Haven, and indeed other villages, succumbed to paranoia as they began pointing fingers, accusing innocent souls of consorting with unseen forces. It became evident to me that something needed to be done, but in a way that was rooted in understanding rather than blind fear, in truth rather than superstition. So I decided to set out and seek knowledge, to understand the true nature of what they called veil-stitchers, tide whisperers, and all the other terms for those who bent reality. Were they evil beings deserving of our fear and our condemnation, or simply misunderstood individuals that could be dealt with in a less barbaric, more discerning way? I spent months traveling, my feet worn, my spirit hungry for answers. I learned from scholars in hidden libraries, from priests in ancient abbeys, and even from suspected practitioners, those on the fringes who were willing to share their side of the story, their whispered truths, their harrowing experiences. I acquired books and ancient manuscripts that taught me the history of these warden traditions, the subtle signs of true dark magic, and methods for confronting such forces. I trained in combat, knowing that I might have to defend myself and others from genuine magical threats, steeling my body as I had steeled my mind. I wanted to be prepared, for I had decided to become a warden of the Vale, but a new kind becoming an apprentice to Master Sellers was my final, crucial step. He was a reasoned warden, a man of profound wisdom and grim experience who had been in this perilous business for decades. While some of his methods were controversial, whispered about in hushed tones, he knew the craft of magic and its adversaries well, and he could teach me things that books and travels never could, lessons etched in blood and fear. Under his guidance, I aimed to become a different kind of warden, one who would bring reason and discernment to a trade, often guided by hysteria and unbridled terror. My goal is not just to hunt practitioners of the Vale, but to understand them, to distinguish between those who mean harm and those who merely exist differently, and to apply justice where it is truly deserved, not where it is merely suspected. I strive to be the change, to bring about a new era in the protection of the innocent that doesn't involve mindless persecution, but focuses on the true threats. Today is the day I take on the role of a warden for the first time. The weight of the responsibility rests heavy on my shoulders as I prepare to leave with Master Sellers, my mentor. The atmosphere is thick with tension as we gather our supplies, swords sharpened to a fine edge, their steel glinting menacingly. Leather-bound books containing crucial esoteric knowledge about ancient practices, and small pouches filled with various potent herbs and substances known for their efficacy against dark manipulations. Sellers, with his severe expression and penetrating gaze, turns to me, his eyes searching, questioning my commitment. "Calb, are you sure you want to do this?" His voice is deep, filled with years of grim experience and caution, a gravelly sound that resonates with hard-won wisdom. I look back at him, trying to project as much confidence as I can muster, though my heart hammers a frantic rhythm against my ribs. "I am," I assert, my voice steady, though I feel a tremor deep within. "Our villages are under threat. Veil Stitchers are causing harm and sowing chaos. Someone has to take action with clear eyes and a steady hand." He nods, apparently satisfied with my answer, a flicker of something akin to approval in his stern gaze. "Very well. Make sure your horse is well fed and ready for the journey. We have a long ride ahead of us. We're heading to Stonehaven, where there are troubling rumors of rampant dark activity, whispers of Veil Stitchers twisting the very fabric of nature, making the shadows speak. I ready my horse, Ember, a sturdy mare with a spirited temperament, checking the saddle and bridle with practiced ease. The animal senses the urgency in the air and stomps its hooves impatiently, blowing hot air from its nostrils. I mount and join Sellers, and together we ride out as the first hints of dawn break over the horizon. The sky turns from a deep navy to lighter shades of blue, then to hues of rose and gold, signaling the start of a new day, and for me, a new life, a path irrevocably chosen. The ride to Stonehaven is quiet, each of us lost in our own thoughts, the rhythmic thud of hooves against the earth the only sound. Sellers finally breaks the silence when the village comes into view, its small, thatched cottages appearing innocent enough, but hiding a deep, tangled web of fear and rumors. "Listen carefully, Calb," he says, his voice low and firm. "Once we get there, we need to gather information. We'll ask the villagers about any strange occurrences, any unexplained phenomena, but we must do so carefully. These people are terrified, clinging to what little hope they have. The last thing they need is more reason to panic, more fuel for the fire of their fear." I take in Sellers's instructions, understanding the delicacy of our mission, the precarious balance we must maintain. Fear, I know, can spread like wildfire, especially in small, tight-knit communities like Stonehaven. A misplaced word, a careless question, or an unfounded accusation could send the villagers into a frenzy, a blind panic that would make our job even more difficult, if not impossible. "Remember," Sellers adds, his voice echoing in the growing light as we approach the village entrance, "our aim is to protect these people, to lift the shadows from their lives, not to become another source of their fear, another harbinger of dread. Let's go about this the right way, with discernment and caution." With that, we enter Stonehaven, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead, ready to confront the darkness that has taken root here. We arrive at the village square, a focal point of community activity, though today it feels desolate, choked by an invisible anxiety. Sellers guides his horse toward a well where a small group of men are engaged in hushed conversation. They look serious, their faces lined with concern, their shoulders slumped with the burden of unspoken fears. I steer my horse in the opposite direction, toward a woman who is quickly walking with a basket full of apples, her pace suggesting she wants to get to the market and back home as quickly as possible, avoiding eye contact, avoiding conversation. "Good morning, ma'am," I say, offering a friendly yet respectful greeting as I dismount, my boots crunching on the dusty ground. "Morning," she responds, her eyes looking everywhere but at me, clearly uneasy, her gaze darting like a trapped bird. Aware of her nervousness, I get straight to the point, my voice soft but clear. "I don't mean to alarm you, but have you noticed anything out of the ordinary recently? Anything that seems odd or unsettling, perhaps beyond the natural order?" She stops for a moment, her basket held tightly to her chest. She glances around, a quick furtive movement to ensure no one is within earshot, then leans in, her voice barely a whisper. "People are talking about a veil stitcher," she whispers, her eyes wide with unarticulated terror. "A being that twists the light itself, makes shadows dance and speak, makes sounds that aren't there. But that's as much as I know. People are scared to say more, scared it might hear." I give her a solemn nod, thanking her for the information. She hurries off, her steps quickening, likely eager to leave the topic in the square behind her, to outrun the fear that clings to her like a shroud. I make my way back to Sellers, who is concluding his discussion with the men by the well, his face grim, his brow furrowed. He turns toward me, his eyes searching mine for any clue of what I discovered. "Any useful information?" he asks, keen to compare notes, to piece together the fragments of dread. "Some," I respond, my voice low. "The woman I spoke to mentioned rumors of a veil stitcher, a being that manipulates darkness, though she didn't offer specifics." The fear in her eyes spoke volumes. Sellers nods, appearing neither surprised nor particularly relieved. "Same here. The men suggested that if there is such a being, it's likely to be near the old mill in the forest, where the shadows are deepest and the trees grow thickest. They spoke of chilling whispers and strange lights emanating from its depths after dusk. Let's investigate." We guide our horses out of the square and move toward the edge of the village where the ancient, murmuring forest begins. The trail, barely visible, leads us deeper into the woods, toward an old mill, its wooden structure weather-beaten and aged, almost swallowed by the encroaching foliage. It's almost noon, yet the air around the mill feels unnaturally cold, a biting chill that seems to emanate from the very stones. A stiff, unnatural wind picks up, swirling around the decrepit wheel attached to the mill, causing it to emit a long, drawn-out creak, like a tortured moan. Sellers dismounts, his movements deliberate, his gaze fixed on the mill. He looks at me, his eyes narrowed. "We should cover more ground quickly. I'll go through the front entrance. You circle around the building and check the surroundings. Look for any hidden passages or unnatural disturbances. Keep your sword ready and be on your guard, Calb. The air here is heavy with unease." I nod, drawing my sword from its leather scabbard. The steel glints in the scarce sunlight that manages to filter through the dense canopy of trees, a sliver of cold light in the deepening gloom. As Sellers walks cautiously toward the front door of the mill, his hand on his own hilt, I start making my way around the building, every sense heightened, aware that the situation could turn dangerous in an instant. The silence of the forest is broken only by the creak of the mill wheel and the distant murmur of the wind. Suddenly, I hear a commotion from inside, a sharp clang of metal and a guttural cry. My heart races as I sprint to the front of the building. My hand gripping my sword hilt, I kick open the door with a forceful thrust of my boot, splintered wood flying inward. Inside, I find Sellers locked in a desperate struggle with a woman. Her appearance is unsettling, unlike anything I've ever seen described in the texts. Her eyes are pitch black, devoid of any white or iris, two abyssal pools that seem to drink the light. This immediate and unusual detail validates our suspicion that she is indeed a veil stitcher, a being of profound, unnatural darkness. Without hesitation, I jump into the melee, my sword in hand. I aim carefully, my blade a blur, avoiding Sellers while trying to disarm the woman. She fights back vigorously, displaying unnatural strength, her movements fluid and terrifyingly quick, like a shadow given form. But the two of us, working in tandem, a practiced dance of blade and will, eventually overpower her. Sellers swiftly produces a length of enchanted cord from his belt, its threads glowing faintly, and binds her hands tightly, ensuring she can't cast any spells. As he finishes tying the knots, a moment of doubt overtakes me, a cold wave of uncertainty. Her eyes, though still black, seem to hold a flicker of something ancient and knowing. "Sellers, are we doing the right thing?" I ask, my voice a strained whisper, the question born of deep unease. Sellers looks up, his gaze meeting mine, unwavering. "We're doing what's necessary," he replies, his tone leaving no room for further questioning. It's a simple yet weighty answer, sealing the gravity of our actions, burying my fleeting doubt under a mountain of duty. We lead the bound woman out of the mill, making our way back through the darkening forest towards the village. Sellers rides ahead, his back straight, clearly focused on the task at hand. I follow behind, my thoughts racing, the phrase, "what's necessary," looping in my mind. In this grim and perilous duty of a warden, maybe that's the best one can aim for. To do what's essential for the greater good of the community, even if the individual cost is high, morally or otherwise, even if it feels like sacrificing a piece of your soul. Despite my reservations, a part of me recognizes that action had to be taken. Villagers are living in fear, choking on it, and our role is to protect them, to lift that choking weight. As we approach Stonehaven, I realize that this is a point of no return. My path is set, my purpose solidified. Time passes, flowing like a dark river, and my training under Sellers becomes increasingly intense, a relentless crucible that forges my abilities and hardens my spirit. Every day is a new lesson in tracking unseen entities, deciphering ancient spell matrices, and mastering interrogation techniques that delve into the deepest fears of the accused. It's not just about physical training. Sellers makes sure to equip me with the psychological tools I need to handle the immense emotional strain that comes with this role. The knowing doubts, the whispers of conscience that rise from the depths of the shadows we confront. Our overarching goal remains simple yet vital. Safeguard the innocent from the corrupting influence of veil stitchers, tide whisperers, and other practitioners of manipulated magic. Sellers is a demanding teacher, expecting nothing less than my absolute best effort, pushing me to my limits, past where I thought my limits were. However, he balances his sternness with fairness, praising my progress when I excel while clearly outlining what I need to improve upon, where my weaknesses lie. He taught me the art of the binding wards, ancient symbols drawn in pure silver dust that could contain even the most potent of energies. He showed me how to speak to the essence of the land, to feel the ripple of unnatural influence. But most crucially, he taught me about the Thornhold itself, hinting at its true purpose, its ancient design, describing it as a node, a place where certain ley lines converged, a natural nexus for the veil between worlds to thin. He spoke of its potential, both as a shield and as a crucible. Then comes the news of a formidable tide whisperer menacing the village of Riverbend. Unlike our previous assignments, this case seems particularly challenging. The tide whisperer named Seraphina is not a newcomer to the world of elemental manipulation. She has a reputation for being cunning, elusive, and profoundly dangerous, and has successfully evaded capture in the past. Known for causing extensive famine through her curses, twisting the very life out of the earth and drying the wells, Seraphina poses a direct existential threat to the livelihood of the entire village, to its very survival. After gearing up, our weapons honed, our supplies carefully chosen, Sellers and I ride out to Riverbend. Our horses maintain a steady gallop, covering the ground quickly, leaving the familiarity of our town behind, trading comfort for grim duty. As we draw nearer to Riverbend, the evidence of Seraphina's malevolence becomes increasingly apparent, a chilling testament to her power. Fields that should be lush and green at this time of the year are instead barren and brown, the earth cracked and lifeless. Patches of land that once yielded abundant crops now lie empty, incapable of supporting any form of life, the very soil seemingly poisoned, brittle beneath our horses' hooves. It's a sobering sight, a landscape of despair, and it amplifies the urgency of our mission, making the weight of it press down on my chest. In Riverbend, it's immediately clear that the village is gripped by a profound sense of hopelessness. People move about their daily chores with lethargic movements, their faces a mask of worry and despair, their eyes hollow. Conversations are few and hushed, and laughter is entirely absent, banished by the encroaching shadow of hunger and fear. This isn't just a community struggling with economic hardship. These people are fighting for their very lives and losing, with Seraphina's curse suffocating the land. The clock is ticking on how long these villagers can hold out before they're entirely broken, their spirits crushed. The weight of our task becomes heavier with each step we take, a leaden cloak upon our shoulders, as we understand that failure is not an option. Serafina is more clever than most we've dealt with. We need to be on our toes, Calb, Sellers states, his voice low, his eyes scanning the desolate village square as we dismount from our horses. We divide our efforts, aiming to cover more ground in a shorter amount of time, to gather information swiftly and efficiently. The square is filled with people who show obvious signs of distress, their thin bodies and hollow eyes speaking volumes. I can see the apprehension in their eyes as I approach, a mixture of fear and faint hope. It's as if they are sizing me up, wondering if I am their savior or merely another harbinger of false hope. I walk up to a farmer who is attempting to extract some utility from the parched land, though his actions appear futile given the soil's current lifeless state. "Good day, sir," I greet him, striving to keep my tone light to appear approachable. "The fields are not yielding much, are they?" A heavy sigh escapes his lips as he wipes sweat from his forehead with a calloused hand. "It's as if the earth itself has turned against us," he mutters, his voice raspy. "No water, no crop, nothing. It's like the land is cursed, blighted by an unseen hand." "Intriguing," I say cautiously, pressing the point. "Have you noticed anything else out of the ordinary? Perhaps unfamiliar faces lurking about, strange occurrences at night?" He pauses, debating whether to share what he knows, his eyes darting nervously. Finally he gives in, his voice dropping to a low rumble. "Look, people around here are talking. They say it's Serafina's doing. She's been spotted in the northern woods, near the ancient standing stones, where the trees whisper old secrets." I nod my thanks to the farmer, the information confirming our suspicions, and make my way back to where Sellers is standing, his face stern but focused. "I spoke to a local who saw Serafina near the old ruins in the northern woods," he shares, glancing at me for my input. "The same location was mentioned by a farmer I spoke with," I reply. Our corroborated information leaves no room for doubt. Serafina is most likely in the northern woods. We saddle up our horses and set out toward the ancient standing stones. As we draw near, a heavy, weary feeling of dread pervades the atmosphere, almost as if the very air is saturated with malevolence, with ancient, simmering power. Both Sellers and I sense it. It's as if the woods themselves are cautioning us, their ancient branches twisting into grotesque warnings. We dismount, tying our horses to a sturdy, gnarled tree, their flanks heaving, their eyes wide. Swords unsheathed, their steel glinting faintly in the deepening shadows, we cautiously move forward on foot, our steps hushed, our senses on high alert. "Sellers, how do you want to approach this?" I ask, eyeing the darkened woods and crumbling, moss-covered ruins ahead, which seem to writhe in the dim light. "Sweep the perimeter," he directs, his eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of movement or danger, his hand firm on his hilt. "I'll take the front and move through the middle of the ruins. Stay alert, Calb. She won't be easily found." I follow Sellers's instructions and begin to circle the ruins, my ears straining to pick up any sound, my eyes piercing the gloom. I pick up a peculiar sound. A low, haunting chant that seems to come from behind a collapsed section of an old stone wall, a repetitive, resonant hum that chills me to the bone. I pause, making eye contact with Sellers across the ruins and signaling towards the source of the sound. He nods, understanding the gravity of the moment, his face a mask of grim determination. In a coordinated effort, we both burst into the secluded area, disrupting Serafina in the midst of what appears to be a dark and ominous ritual. Ingredients for a spell are scattered on a makeshift altar fashioned from an ancient, moss-covered stone, and she looks up, her eyes ablaze with an unnatural, hungry light. No hint of fear, only a chilling, predatory gleam. A low, guttural laugh escapes her lips as she meets our gaze, a sound that scrapes against my nerves like rusty iron. "Ah, the renowned wardens finally make their appearance," she taunts, staring at us with a malevolent grin, a cruel twist of her lips. "But you're too late for this village. My work here is done." The audacity in her voice is unnerving, laced with a chilling confidence, but it only firms my resolve. We are here to put an end to her malevolent deeds, whatever the cost, whatever the sacrifice. With his sword drawn, Sellers lunges at Serafina, his movement swift for a man of his age, but she's quicker, far more agile than she appears. With a flick of her wrist, she conjures a wall of crackling, infernal fire that erupts between us, a blazing barrier of pure heat and light. I try to find a way around the blazing obstruction, looking for an opening, a weakness in her defense to assist Sellers. Meanwhile, he attempts to leap over the flames, but stumbles, barely avoiding getting burned, the heat singing the hairs on his arm. As I finally manage to circle the fire, feeling its intense heat even at a distance, Serafina seizes the moment to counterattack. She utters a harsh incantation, and a sudden, violent gust of wind whips through the ruins, pushing Sellers with immense force against a thick, gnarled tree, pinning him momentarily, knocking the breath from his lungs. I rush toward her, sword in hand, the steel a cold comfort in my grip, but she spots me, her black eyes flashing. With another wave of her hand, she sends a bolt of raw, dark energy my way, a searing projectile that hums with malevolence. I dodge narrowly, avoiding it, but the bolt hits a massive, ancient tree behind me, causing it to crash down with a thunderous roar, blocking my path, showering me with leaves and splinters. I scramble over the fallen tree, my focus solely on reaching Serafina, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Sellers has managed to free himself, pushing away from the tree, and is back in the fray, his blade a silver blur, but she's holding her own, her hands glowing with dark energy, deflecting his strikes, launching her own. He parries a blast from her, but it's clear he's tiring, his movements becoming less precise, his breaths more labored. I finally clear the tree and close the distance. Serafina is too engrossed in her desperate duel with Sellers to notice me approaching from behind, my footsteps muffled by the rustling leaves and the crackle of her magic. Just as I'm about to strike, she suddenly turns, sensing my presence, her eyes widening for a fraction of a second. I swing my sword, but she parries it with a magical shield that shimmers into existence, stopping my blade with a jarring thud. Sellers takes advantage of her divided attention to make his move. He lunges at her, managing to graze her arm with his blade, drawing a thin line of black blood. She cries out in pain, a piercing, inhuman shriek, momentarily distracted. I seize the opportunity. I tackle her from behind, throwing her off balance, sending her sprawling onto the ancient stones. Sellers quickly follows up, looping the enchanted cord around her wrists. Her spells break, the magical energy dissipating into the air like smoke. She's bound and neutralized, her hands tied with the spell-neutralizing cord, her power snuffed out exhausted but relieved. We take a moment to catch our breath, our chests heaving, the air thick with the smell of ozone and burnt earth. Now bound and powerless, Serafina can no longer resist as we begin the long walk back to the village, escorting her. We notice a wondrous change as we escort her. The barren fields that stretched out before us start to show subtle signs of life. A hint of green reappears on the farmlands, a faint shimmer of hope, and the desiccated crops start to regain their life, their stalks straightening, their leaves unfurling. The curse she cast is lifting, its dark influence waning with her capture, almost as if the land itself breathes a sigh of relief. Back in the village square, the townspeople are cautious, their faces still etched with the memory of their suffering, but their eyes show a newfound hope, a fragile, trembling flicker of life returning. Several villagers come forward, their voices thick with emotion, offering their heartfelt thanks for our intervention, for bringing back their lives. As we ready our horses for departure, Sellers turns to me, his face as stern as ever, but his eyes are softer than usual, a warmth I rarely see there. "You've learned quickly, Calb," he says, his voice gruff but laced with a rare pride. "You're ready to work alone now." His statement is straightforward, simple, but it carries immense weight, a transfer of mantle. Sellers has prepared me well, has shown me the way, and while the path ahead is filled with challenges, with unknown dangers, I realize that I am equipped to face them thanks to his thorough and relentless training. I nod back at Sellers, acknowledging his endorsement, the silent promise of my new solitary duty. A new phase of my journey as a warden, a new kind of guardian against the darkness, lies ahead. It's a daunting prospect, but one I now feel prepared to undertake, a solitary vigil against the shadows. August 14th, 1670. It's been a few weeks since becoming a solo warden, a solitary sentinel in a world plagued by unseen evils. I've finally gotten my first independent assignment. I step off the horse-drawn carriage, my boots sinking slightly into the damp ground of the coastal town of Port Haven. The air is heavy with the smell of salt water and the less tangible, more pervasive scent of worry, a thick pall of dread that hangs over the docks. My boots crunch on the gravel road as I take in the sights. Local fishermen stand idly by their boats, their nets in hand, but no fish to show, their faces etched with despair. Their shoulders slumped. Mayor Humphrey greets me near the dock. He's a middle-aged man, his formal coat once grand, now showing signs of wear, mirroring the decay of the town's spirit. His face is deeply lined with worry and fatigue, evidence of the brutal toll the situation has taken on him and his people. "Welcome to Port Haven," he says, extending a hand that feels surprisingly cold, trembling faintly. "I wish we were meeting under better circumstances, Master Thorn." "I've been briefed, Mayor," I say, shaking his hand firmly, my grip steady. "I understand you're dealing with some relentless storms, unnatural and unending. It's affecting your fishermen and the local economy grievously." "Exactly," Mayor Humphrey replies, nodding his head, his gaze sweeping over the turbulent waters. "The sea is our lifeblood here. When it turns on us, when it becomes a raging beast, everything falls apart. Ships have been unable to leave harbor for weeks. Goods are piling up, rotting on the docks. Fishermen can't earn their keep, and people are starting to go hungry, truly hungry." My gaze shifts from the mayor to the roiling waters of the harbor. Waves crash against the shore with unusual ferocity, like an angry titan lashing out. Seagulls, which normally fill the air with their raucous calls, are conspicuously absent, as if even they know something is terribly wrong, as if they have fled from the wrath of the sea. "Well, I'm here to find out what or who is causing these storms and put an end to it," I assure him, my voice carrying conviction. Mayor Humphrey looks at me with a desperate mix of hope and weariness, his eyes pleading. "I pray you can, Master Thorn, for all our sakes, for the very soul of Port Haven." I nod. "The situation is grim, a truly desperate plight, but that's exactly why I've been sent here. My training with Sellers has prepared me for challenges like this. It's time to get to work." I head straight to the docks where clusters of fishermen gather around idle boats, their bodies slumped, their spirits broken. Fishing nets are rolled up, tackle boxes are closed, and the atmosphere is thick with frustration and fear, a palpable sense of doom. I introduce myself as a specialist sent by the authorities, and they are more than willing to share their thoughts, their grievances, their superstitions. "It's those tide whisperers, I tell you," says an old man with a weathered face, his skin like old leather, introducing himself as Barnaby. "I've been fishing these waters for decades, and never has the sea been so unforgiving, so vicious. It's not natural, Master Thorn, it's not God's will." "Tide whisperers, you say? Interesting," I respond, jotting down a mental note, filing away the term. "Where could I possibly find them?" Barnaby looks around cautiously, his eyes darting, making sure no one else is within earshot, as if fearing the very air might carry his words. Then he leans in closer, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "They've taken up residence in a cave about a mile west of here, past the marshlands, deep in the sea caves. Folks have seen them go in and out at odd hours, under the pale moonlight, doing who knows what foul rituals, stirring up the very ocean." I nod, absorbing the information, connecting the dots. "Is there a specific reason you think they are behind the storms?" The old fisherman scratches his grizzled beard, his eyes narrowing. "Well, it's no coincidence that these storms started right around the time they arrived. Plus, people have heard eerie chanting and seen strange phosphorescent lights emanating from that cave at night, a ghostly glow on the water. Something's not right, Master Thorn, I'm telling you." "Thank you, Barnaby. This is helpful," I say, my resolve strengthening, a sense of purpose solidifying within me. Armed with this new information, I decide it's time to check out this cave for myself. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, I find myself standing before the cave's entrance. It's a dark, gaping hole in the side of a sheer limestone cliff, framed by jagged rocks and overgrown, salt-sprayed shrubbery. The sea is rough behind me, crashing against the cliffs with a furious roar, as if warning me to stay away, to turn back before it's too late. I pull a torch from my backpack and light it. The flame flickers, its light dancing, casting eerie, shifting shadows on the cave's interior, making the very stones seem to writhe. Taking a deep breath, steeling myself for the unknown, I step inside. My senses are on high alert as I venture deeper into the cave. The walls are uneven, cold and damp, with menacing stalactites hanging from the ceiling like ancient teeth. I start to hear faint whispers, insidious and sibilant, that grow louder with each step, coiling around me like unseen snakes. Then I hear it. Incantations, a rhythmic, guttural chant that sends a chill down my spine, a sound that feels both ancient and profoundly wrong. Finally, I turn a corner and see them. 3 figures cloaked in dark, sea-stained robes, standing in a circle around a rough-hewn altar, clearly in the midst of a ritual, their backs to me. Strange arcane symbols are drawn on the damp ground with phosphorescent paint, glowing faintly in the dimness. And they have various ritualistic items laid out, a wicked-looking dagger, flickering black candles whose flames burn with an unnatural green hue, and a bound book, its pages yellowed and Brittleknot deciding to wait, that to delay would be to invite disaster. I step into the circle of light created by their flickering candles, my sword already in hand. "So you're the reason the storms have been battering this town," I announce, my voice firm and clear, leveling my gaze at them. The tallest of the Tide Whisperers, who appears to be the leader, her face gaunt and severe, looks up at me. Her eyes are cold and flat, like stagnant pools, and a slow, cruel smile spreads across her lips, revealing teeth that are unnaturally sharp. "And who, pray tell, is going to stop us, little man?" she taunts, her voice like grinding stones. "You, if I have to," I reply, gripping the hilt of my sword tightly. "I've been trained for this." But the tension in the air is undeniable, thick enough to choke on. A wicked, cackling laugh reverberates through the cave, amplified by the natural acoustics. "Very well, try it, Warden," she taunts. In that moment, all three Tide Whisperers raise their arms in unison, their movements synchronized, and the atmosphere inside the cave changes dramatically. The air turns electric, thick with a tangible energy that makes the hair on my arm stand on end. Winds whip around violently, swirling in unnatural patterns even within the confines of the cave, like a miniature hurricane. The force of the wind extinguishes my torch in an instant, plunging the cave into oppressive darkness, save for the faint glow of the ritual symbols. My eyes struggle to adjust, but I grip my sword tighter, holding it in front of me, its blade a faint outline against the gloom. I take a defensive stance, straining my ears to pinpoint their locations based on the sound of their voices, their whispers, their movements. The darkness is oppressive, a suffocating shroud, but it won't deter me. I am ready for anything. The leader of the Tide Whisperers stretches out her hand, and a bolt of crackling black energy shoots toward me, humming with malevolence. The air sizzles as it passes, burning my skin even from a distance. Relying on my instincts and the rigorous training Sellas imparted, I manage to dodge just in time, rolling to the side. The bolt narrowly misses me and collides with a cave wall, leaving a deep scorch mark, sizzling and spitting. Using the opening, the brief moment of surprise, I channel my focus and recite an incantation, one that Sellas taught me for just such occasions. A glowing orb of pure, contained light materializes in my palm, pulsing faintly, and shoots toward the Tide Whisperers. The leader, quick on her feet, dodges just in the nick of time, a blur in the darkness. But one of her companions is slower, caught off guard. The orb connects squarely with her chest, and she lets out a sharp gasp as she's knocked off her feet, sprawling onto the damp ground, temporarily incapacitated. Not wasting a second, I pull out a length of spell-neutralizing cord from my belt, a braided length of silver thread and enchanted leather. I rush over and quickly bind the fallen Tide Whisperer's hands. The cord tightens on its own, glowing faintly, neutralizing her magical abilities. 2 Tide Whisperers down, 1 to go, I turn my attention to the remaining Tide Whisperer. She snarls, a guttural, animalistic sound, and lunges at me with surprising speed, her fingers extended like wicked claws, her nails unnaturally long and sharp. But I've been trained well. I sidestep her attack, simultaneously extending my foot to trip her up. She stumbles and falls forward, crashing onto the ground with a grunt. Before she can recover, before she can even think of retaliation, I'm on her, swift and decisive. Using another length of the special cord, I bind her hands behind her back. Once again, the cord tightens, its magic flaring briefly, and her magical abilities are suppressed, her power contained. The leader of the Tide Whisperers backs away into the deeper, impenetrable darkness of the cave, her eyes still locked onto mine, glowing like embers in the gloom. "This isn't over, Warden," she hisses, her voice laced with chilling malice, a promise of future retribution. "You've won a battle, not the war. The true storm is yet to come." In the blink of an eye, she vanishes into the depths of the cave, swallowed by the shadows, leaving me standing in a silence that's now tainted with the promise of future confrontations, a cold dread that settles in my bones. Gathering the captured Tide Whisperers, their struggles futile, I make my way back to Port Haven. As we arrive, I can feel a tangible change in the atmosphere. The air isn't as thick with desperation as before. Even the sea appears calmer, its once turbulent waves now gently lapping at the shore, a soft, soothing murmur. It's as if the town itself is letting out a sigh of relief, a collective release of tension. I hand over the captured Tide Whisperers to the local authorities, ensuring they are securely locked away in a reinforced cell built specially for these kinds of entities, a place where their power cannot resonate. Mayor Humphrey approaches, his shoulders visibly lighter, a genuine smile replacing the lines of worry on his face. "Thank you, Master Thorn," he says firmly, shaking my hand, his grip now warm and strong. "You've saved our town. You've saved our people." "I did what I had to do," I reply, recalling Seles's grim mantra about our duty. "We do what's necessary to protect the innocent." The fishermen are already making preparations to go out to sea again, their movements quick and eager, mending nets and preparing boats, their voices filled with a renewed sense of purpose. Families reunite at the docks, tearful embraces and hopeful smiles replacing the grim expressions from before. Life in Port Haven is slowly but surely returning to what it once was, a vibrant, bustling coastal town. But as I mount my horse to leave, to ride toward my next assignment, the weight of the leader's words still lingers in my mind. This isn't over. You've won a battle, not the war. The true storm is yet to come. She's still out there somewhere in the shadows, plotting and planning. This confrontation was merely an opening gambit, and I find myself both anticipating and dreading our next encounter, knowing that the real conflict has only just begun. April 24th, 1673. Years of relentless experience have prepared me for countless challenges, forged me in the fires of conflict, tempered my spirit against the insidious whispers of doubt. But nothing, it seems, has prepared me quite like this. I find myself at the entrance of a crumbling ancient castle, its stone walls scarred by time and conflict, its very presence radiating an unsettling aura. Vines of ivy, thick and dark, cover the stones like a shroud, nature reclaiming the once grand structure, its spires clawing at the bruised sky. People talk about Alara Blackwood, a veil stitcher of immense power, rumored to be different, possibly more dangerous than any I've encountered, a being of ancient, forgotten magic. As I hold the cold hilt of my sword, its familiar weight a comfort, a strange feeling of anticipation, almost a morbid excitement, surges through me. I need to find out if what they say about her is true, if this is the greater evil Sellas hinted at, the true storm the Tide Whisperer in Port Haven spoke of. As I step inside, the atmosphere changes noticeably, shifting from the cool, damp exterior to something far more sinister. The air is dense, heavy, almost viscous, as if it carries the weight of all the dark magic that's been practiced here for centuries, a psychic residue clinging to the stones, to the very air I breathe. The walls are adorned with torches that burn in an unsettling, flickering hue, their flames casting grotesque, dancing shadows. The light they cast doesn't feel like it comes from simple fire. It feels tinged with enchantment, with an unnatural, cold glow. I sense that I am being watched, not by ordinary eyes, but by something far more ancient and powerful. There is a force here, an intelligence aware of my entry, analyzing my every move, probing at my defenses. "So you finally come," a voice reverberates, filling the chamber, echoing off the high, vaulted ceilings and making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, a chilling sensation. It's an unsettling sound, deep and resonant, as if the very stones themselves have found a voice that whispers of forgotten power, of boundless depth. "Show yourself, Alara," I command, my tone unwavering despite the strangeness of the moment, despite the tremor in my soul. She emerges from the shadows, almost as if materializing from the darkness itself, a figure of elegant menace. Her eyes, pools of liquid midnight, meet mine, and there's a spark there, a glint of something unsettlingly familiar, almost a recognition, a hidden knowledge. She looks at me as though she knows something about me that I don't, a secret buried deep within my lineage, within the very fabric of this house. "Do you even know why you hunt us, Warden?" Alara's voice is soft, a silken whisper but sharp like a honed blade, tinged with an emotion I can't quite place. Is it pity, amusement? A chilling ancient sorrow. "I hunt to protect those who can't protect themselves," I fire back, trying to maintain my focus, to resist her insidious words, to hold on to the purity of my purpose. "I hunt to bring balance to a world threatened by your kind." "Do you?" she challenges, an almost mournful tone in her voice, a profound sadness that seems to emanate from her very being. "Or do you hunt because it fills a void in you, an annoying emptiness? Does it give you a reason to exist, a purpose where none otherwise would be found?" Her words are calculated, aimed at unsettling me, at unraveling the very core of my conviction. But I've trained for this, for the psychological warfare that accompanies the magical. I have prepared myself to resist such insidious tactics. "Enough talk," I assert, pulling my sword from its sheath, the familiar sound of steel sliding against leather a small comfort. The blade gleams in the eerie light, a cold, hard promise, ready for whatever comes next. Very well, Alara says, her voice losing its melancholic tone, replaced by a steely resolve. She lifts her arm, her fingers splaying, and blinding bolts of crackling energy, dark as night, rocket from her fingertips, humming with malevolent power, aimed squarely at me. I roll to the side, dodging the bolts, their heat stinging my face as they pass. Almost immediately, I launch a counterattack, channeling the elemental energies I've mastered. A torrent of searing, golden fire erupts from my hand, swirling toward her with blistering speed, a roaring vortex of flame. But she waves her hand casually, with an almost dismissive gesture, and the fire disperses into harmless embers that die out before reaching her. Extinguished by an unseen force dot, it's clear that our magical prowess is on an equal footing. A deadly dance of opposing forces as we trade spells that ripple and crackle through the air, vibrating with raw power. The duel is intense, a desperate, heart-pounding exchange, with neither of us giving ground, each strike, each counter precise and deadly. Each minute is packed with desperate dodges, calculated counters, and terrifying near misses, making the passage of time feel distorted, stretched, as if hours are crammed into seconds. She then does something unexpected, something that breaks the rhythm of our furious exchange. She lowers her hand, her posture relaxing, and takes a step back, her dark eyes still locked onto mine, but with a different intensity now. Good, she concedes, her voice tinged with a newfound respect, a grudging admiration. It's no wonder you've become so infamous among my kind, a name whispered in fear and awe. Catching my breath, my chest heaving, I nod, a silent acknowledgement of her words. You're not so bad yourself, I reply, my grip still firm on the hilt of my sword, ready for her to resume the attack. Your skills truly live up to the stories. Her expression then shifts, becoming something more serious, almost pleading, a deep, ancient sorrow washing over her face. You don't have to continue down this path, Warden, she urges, her voice soft but urgent, almost desperate. You're missing the larger scheme of things, the true struggle. There's a greater evil, a perilous darkness that seeks to unravel the very fabric of this world, something far more insidious than you realize. Evil is evil, I retort, my sword still ready for another round, my conviction unwavering. Is that the excuse you give yourself for the damage and suffering your kind causes, for the chaos you sow? She exhales slowly, her face a mix of disappointment and profound resignation, as if giving up on a long-held hope. I had hoped you'd be different, she says, her voice filled with a sorrow that almost makes me doubt, that almost pierces my resolute conviction, that you might see the larger landscape, the true battle that lies beyond the shadows. But before I can process it, before I can even consider a response, she chants a few words under her breath, a rapid, guttural incantation, ancient and powerful. Then a billowing cloud of thick black smoke erupts around her, filling the space with an awful, acrid smell, burning my nostrils. When the smoke clears, she's nowhere to be found, vanished as completely as if she was never there. I look down, my eyes searching the spot where Alara stood just moments ago, and see a small, folded note resting on the cold, damp stone floor. Picking it up, I quickly scan the words inked on it in a fluid, elegant script. Look for the Obsidian Keepers. You're a piece in a game you don't yet understand. This house holds the key. Thorn. The warden calls. My brow furrows, a deep crease of confusion and growing dread. This is unsettling, to say the least. The Obsidian Keepers. That name rings no bells. In my years of training, my extensive studies on manipulated magic and veiled arts, it's a total enigma, a new variable in an equation I thought I had mostly figured out. And this house holds the key. What does that mean? The Thornhold. A shiver colder than any battle's chill traces its way down my spine. I slide the note into my pocket, where it feels heavier than it should, as if weighted with untold secrets. My mind races, fueled by a newfound uncertainty, a creeping doubt that threatens to consume me. Could there be a grain of truth in Alara's words? Is my lifelong mission, my resolute resolve to rid the world of dark magic, truly as noble and clear-cut as I've always believed? For the first time in what feels like an eternity, I'm beset with doubt, and that doubt feels like a burden I've never had to bear, a weight that threatens to crush me. Turning away from the now empty chamber, the silence feeling oppressive, I make my way out of the ancient, ivy-covered castle. My steps, usually so sure and purposeful, seem slower, more deliberate, weighed down by the questions that swirl in my mind. The weight of the note in my pocket, of the doubts in my mind, of the questions I can't answer, make my stride less confident than it has been for years. I walk out into the open air, but even that feels different now, tainted with an uncertainty I can't easily shake off. May 6, 1675. For 2 years, the memory of Alara Blackwood has haunted me, her words echoing in the quiet moments, her questions burrowing deep into my thoughts. Each veil stitcher I capture, each tide whisper I bind, each skirmish I win seems to push her enigmatic questions further into my mind rather than dispel them. While my tally of contained entities grows, a grim testament to my success, so too does my unease, a constant companion. People in town look at me differently now, their eyes showing both gratitude and a strange hesitation when I pass, as if they fear the very purpose I embody, the grim resolve I carry. But today, there's no room for doubt, no time for introspection. Based on what my informants tell me, the whispers that reach my ears, I stand on the edge of a discovery that could unravel a massive, region-wide plot. Practitioners of manipulated magic conspiring to topple the local government, to plunge the entire region into chaos. I'm standing at the end of a plain wooden door, its surface scarred and worn at the end of a dimly lit tunnel. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something metallic and arcane, like stale blood and burning copper. This underground hideout is far from ordinary, hidden beneath layers of earth and secrecy, a forgotten chamber cloaked in shadow. According to trusted sources, those who risk everything to bring me information, this room houses the true architects of chaos and rebellion, the ones stirring up discord and instability, twisting minds and bending wills. My fingers tighten around the handle of my sword, its blade well-worn from countless battles, its familiar weight a grim comfort. This isn't just another den of spellcasters. It's the heart of a planned uprising, the epicenter of the instability that has been shaking the region, threatening to tear it apart. I take a deep breath, the stale air filling my lungs, steeling myself for what's to come, for the battle that awaits. My hand moves to the door handle, and I feel the weight of the last 2 years press down on me, the victories, the doubts, and the ever-present specter of Alara's lingering questions. The Obsidian Keepers. This house holds the key. The warden calls. The words echo in my mind. I kick the door open with a forceful thrust of my boot, splintered wood flying inward, and step inside, my sword brandished, its point gleaming in the dim light. My eyes adjust quickly to the gloom, revealing a long, rough-hewn wooden table cluttered with an assortment of odd objects. Bubbling vials, ancient leather-bound tomes whose pages radiate a faint dark aura, and pieces of parchment scribbled with intricate incantations, spells of chaos and destruction. A handful of manipulative practitioners, perhaps 6 or 7, are caught off guard, standing around the table, their faces pale in the flickering candlelight. Their eyes grow wide as they recognize me, a flicker of fear, but they quickly regain their composure, their expressions hardening into masks of defiance. "So the famed warden graces us with his presence," says a tall woman at the head of the table, her voice dripping with disdain. She's dressed in flowing dark robes that seem to absorb the very light around her, her eyes cold, devoid of fear, filled only with contempt. A fool rushing in where even darkness fears to tread. "Enough talk," I reply, my voice tinged with grim resolve, cutting through her taunt. I lunge forward, sword at the ready, closing the distance between us in a heartbeat, a silver blur in the dimness. The room erupts in a storm of magic, a whirlwind of arcane power. Ancient, glowing symbols fill the air as the practitioners extend their hands, launching a salvo of spells and curses in my direction. Colors and shapes blend in a whirlwind of supernatural activity aimed squarely at me. Bolts of raw energy, twisting currents of dark wind, shimmering barriers of force. But I've been training for this, preparing for this moment, for the true test of my skills. My movements are a calculated dance, a precise ballet of evasion and counterattack, sidestepping hexes, deflecting curses with my blade, absorbing others with the small protective talismans hidden beneath my tunic. Years of honing my skills are on full display as I counter their magic with practiced ease, my mind a whirlwind of tactical thought. One by one, the manipulators find themselves outmatched, their power broken by my resolve. A binding spell here, a knockback hex there, a disarming enchantment, and they start falling like dominoes, their magic failing, their defenses crumbling. Some lie motionless on the ground, their bodies slumped, unconscious. Others are restrained with the spell-neutralizing cord that I always carry with me, its glowing threads a stark contrast to their dark robes. Soon, the room is quiet, filled only with the ragged breaths of those who remain conscious and the low, guttural moans of the defeated. However, one figure stands apart from the fallen, untouched by the chaos. A middle-aged man with sharp, predatory features, his eyes keen and intelligent, presumably the true leader of this conspiracy, the architect of their dark plans. He seems unfazed by the defeat of his companions, observing the scene with keen, almost analytical interest, a faint, chilling smile playing on his lips. Our eyes meet and I see a spark of recognition in his gaze, a hint of something more than just understanding, a deep, knowing recognition that sends a jolt through me. "Looks like you've underestimated me, Archon," I say, my voice tight, my breath coming in ragged gasps, tightening my grip on my sword. The adrenaline is coursing through my veins, a frantic current, but I feel the physical toll of the intense battle, the exhaustion seeping into my bones. My movements are slightly sluggish, my reflexes not as sharp as they were moments ago, my body screaming for rest. The Archon merely smirks, a thin, cruel line on his face, opening his mouth to speak. But I don't give him the chance, not another word. Summoning the last reserves of my energy, my mind focusing with agonizing effort, I cast a spell, an intricate enchantment aimed to incapacitate, to finally end this. He raises his hand, his eyes widening, attempting to counter, to throw up a desperate defense. Before I can relish the moment, before I can even understand what has truly transpired, a searing, unimaginable pain shoots through my entire body, starting from my chest and radiating outwards, consuming me. My vision blurs, the room spinning, the darkness encroaching, and I realize with a dawning horror that I am severely wounded, perhaps fatally. I grip my sword tightly, my knuckles white, fighting off the dizziness that threatens to overwhelm me, to drag me down into the abyss. The world spins, then goes black. I close the last journal, its final, chilling sentence hanging in the air like a question without an answer, a terrible, unfinished symphony. The world spins, then goes black. The handwriting ends so abruptly that I double-check to make sure I haven't missed a page, frantically flipping through the brittle, yellowed paper. But no, that's it. The warden's tale is incomplete, severed mid-sentence, leaving me suspended in a void of grim uncertainty. My hands rest on the leather cover, feeling its worn texture, almost as if it's charged with the intensity of the story it contains, with the lingering energy of Calb Thorne. A profound chill runs down my spine, not from the cool air in the room, but from the unsettling void the journal leaves, from the unspoken horrors it implies. What happened to Calb Thorne? He was so close, just a hair's breadth away from capturing that final, elusive Archon. Was he successful in thwarting whatever insidious plot was underway? Did he emerge as the hero he intended to be, the righteous protector of the innocent? Or did something else transpire, something he couldn't have anticipated, something that twisted his fate beyond recognition? The doubts and questions that plagued him, the seeds of skepticism sown 2 years prior by the enigmatic Alara Blackwood. Did they grow into a crippling tree of uncertainty, clouding his judgment? How did it affect his resolve, his moral compass, which was once so clear, so unwavering? The journal suggests it became increasingly murky as time wore on, the lines blurring between right and wrong, between truth and deceit. Did it finally point him in a direction he couldn't or wouldn't follow? I think about the people in the towns he visited, the ones who looked at him with both respect and fear. Were they truly saved, or were they left to an uncertain fate, held hostage to dark forces they could not understand, not fully comprehend? Did they ever find out what became of the man who came to rid them of their curses, or is his name just another whispered legend, the tale of a warden who vanished before his job was done? And what about the manipulators he hunted? Were they part of something larger, something more profound, as Alara had hinted, the Obsidian Keepers? The note mentioned it, a phrase that implies a shadowy group with a far-reaching agenda, a power hidden beneath the surface of the world. Was Calb, as the note suggested, just a piece in a game he couldn't fully comprehend? A pawn manipulated by powers far beyond his understanding, far beyond his control? I realize I've been holding my breath and let it out slowly, a long, ragged exhalation. Disappointed, even frustrated, I wish there were more pages to read, more clues to dissect, more answers to uncover. The journal gives me a glimpse into a complex, dangerous world, a world where the lines between good and evil are blurred. But it leaves me staring into an abyss of unanswered questions, an emptiness that echoes in the quiet house. Suddenly, a cold draft sweeps through the room, making the hair on my arm stand on end. The old house groans around me, a low, resonant sound that isn't just the creaking of old wood, but something deeper, more organic, like a vast, ancient creature stirring in its sleep. The shadows in the corners seem to lengthen, deepen, coiling, almost breathing. I feel a presence, a subtle shift in the air, as if something ancient has woken. It's not a malevolent feeling, not exactly, but something vast and immensely old, something that has been dormant for a very long time, disturbed by my reading. The house feels different now, not just an old building but aware, observing, holding something. The last words of Alara's note flash in my mind. This house holds the key. Thorn, the warden calls. And Calb's name, Thorn, my name. Julian Thorn, a chilling connection I hadn't made before, a lineage I never knew, or perhaps a destiny. The wooden chest from the attic, still sitting by the couch where I'd left it, seems to hum faintly, a low, almost imperceptible vibration. I reach out, my fingers trembling, and touch its surface. It's colder than it should be, an unnatural, grave-like chill. I feel a faint, throbbing pain in my chest, right where Calb mentioned his wound, a phantom ache that startles me. My vision blurs for a moment, just like his last words described, a fleeting glimpse of darkness and searing pain, a memory not my own. The house is no longer just a house. It feels like a living entity, its walls breathing, its silence watchful. The journals aren't just a story, they're a trigger, a key, as Alara said. This house, Thorn, my chest aches. My vision clears, but the feeling of profound unease, of being watched, of being known, remains. This isn't just a new home. This is the Thornhold, and it feels like I've just woken up something ancient, something that needed a warden, a purpose. And I, Julian Thorn, am now part of its enigmatic, chilling purpose, a piece in a game I'm only just beginning to understand. The silence of the house presses in, no longer comforting but an oppressive, echoing tomb. I realize with a dawning, terrible clarity that the warden's tale didn't end with a blurring vision. It simply continued. And now, so does mine. What was your favorite part of the story? Want more stories like this? Follow for more.